Hey there, this is going to be a video on how to replace a Kenmore Elite He5t door boot seal. The symptoms are that it's leaking water out the bottom. The water actually comes out the bottom door down here and all over the floor. And so I've diagnosed that the issue is the door boot seal has worked itself off on the inner side, so we're going to disassemble it, take that door boot seal off, inspect it, and then put it on nice and tight, and hopefully that'll work. So here you go. This model is the Kenmore Elite. You can see it there, and it is the He5t. It has a metal band that we're going to be taking off. We're also going to be disassembling this top panel and taking it off. And we're also going to be removing the bottom panel so that we can get the door unit off. The symptoms are that it's leaking water. There's two seals here. The door seal itself has two springs that attach it onto the housing. This is the front one, and then the rear one is down here. And as you can see, this boot has pulled off. So here's the boot. It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be attached all the way around the inner piece. So we have to disassemble this to get to this seal, take it off, inspect it, and then if it looks good, put it back on, and we'll do that right now. With the washer pulled away from the wall, it's now easy, or easier, to get to the power plug. Go ahead and pull that. We don't want any power while we're disassembling this unit. And then there's going to be 3 screws on this particular unit that we have to take off to get to the top and remove it. This screw on the right side, this in the middle, and then this one over here. So these are the ones I'm going to be working on next, removing those. All of these screws are hexes, so they use a hex screwdriver, so you'll need a hex to remove these. And so what we do is we back these off, and we take each one of these 3 screws off. This one. So now taking off the middle screw of the 3 that are holding the back on. And now the third and final screw holding the top on. Take this off, and then we'll be able to remove the top. Okay, with those 3 screws off, we can now remove the back. It's kind of a two-handed process. You just want to slide it back a little bit and then lift it up. Be careful, there's some sharp edges underneath. And what we're going to do is take this off and put it off to the side so that we can then get into this control panel. It takes some effort, but you have to pull this panel off. Before we do that, we have to remove this piece very gently because it's plastic and it will definitely break. And we're also going to slide this out. We can do this right now. So this is the dispenser. There's a little tab right here you press to remove that, and then we're simply going to set this aside so that we will be able to get to that later. There's a couple screws under here that we're going to be working with too. I'll show you those in a second. Next step is to actually take this chrome snap ring off. Be very gentle with it. It's plastic. It breaks pretty easy. And the way that we do that is we start separating it. You'll probably need a screwdriver to work it out from the side here. But the idea is to gently start prying it away from the side. There's some little snaps in here that are holding it. You'll see those there. And so just kind of go down and gently with your fingers pull it apart gently so that we don't break it. Kind of working back and forth here. Just working back and forth, back and forth. Okay, once you've separated it, you can pull the ring away, and you'll see these kind of grooves here where those white pieces are supposed to go. And there are some that are left on the machine. That's fine. The idea is try not to break these and certainly try not to break your chrome ring. So with the chrome ring off, just set it aside and we'll start working on the next piece, which is we're going to take this front control panel off and removing the screws that are in here. There's one here, you can see that one right there, and then there's one deep in here. So removing this one, and then this one, which is set in rather deep. We can now go ahead and pull this off, and it takes a surprising amount of effort to do that. You're actually going to have to use a screwdriver. You want to be careful, these are all plastic parts, but you're going to have to work a screwdriver into the corners to kind of separate that. You hear that snap? It's a scary snap, but don't freak out. It's what you have to do to get this thing off. It's really tight. So, and likewise working the screwdriver here. And then pulling with a lot of might. I'm actually probably going to end up using both hands to get this off. This piece here is still stuck on. So there we go. All right. So it does take a surprising amount of effort to pull this off, and when you do, you'll see that you don't have a lot of cord here. You could, I suppose, take the cords off. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave them on and simply move this up here. So I'm not taking the cords off. Again, I could if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. We don't need to. We can just leave this right here. To remove this front panel here so that we can get access to some screws that we'll need in order to take the door unit off, there's 3 screws underneath. There's one here, there's one in the middle that you can see, and then there's one on the far side. So what we're going to be doing is removing these 3 screws in order to access this lower panel. I have a drawer. This was an option that we purchased, so this unit is actually mounted to an optional drawer. So to get access to those screws, I had to move this door out of the way. We're not actually doing anything with this other than just moving it so we can get access to those screws. So let's take those 3 screws off. All right, so taking off the first of the 3 screws, and this one works out pretty easy. There we go. And setting this aside. And now we're working this middle screw, removing it. And we're removing this right side screw. Let's do that. All right, with that lower panel removed, we can now work on the door. But first, there's a very important thing we need to do. We have to take off this spring clamp. As you can see here, there's a very tight spring, and it's holding a wire around this outer door seal. So we have to remove this. I'm going to use a screwdriver to do it, and be gentle. We don't want to mess with this spring. Here's a handy tip. If you're doing this, then the odds are you've probably had water running. You may have a rusted spring. If you do, I would strongly urge you, while you're ordering your boot, to go ahead and order this outer spring as well as the inner one as well. And the reason for that is because since you're already disassembling it, these parts are not expensive. I think this is like $12. But why wait for shipping if you discover that in trying to put the old one back on it breaks? So best to just go ahead and spend the 12 bucks or whatever it costs nowadays and replace this and the inner one, which I'll show you next. So let's get this one off. They make a handy dandy tool for this. I think the tool is like $50 or $60. Unfortunately, I don't have the tool, so I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, and I'm going to have to use a screwdriver, and this is going to be a two-handed job. So I'm going to put the camera down, but you can see what I'm going to have to do, right? I'm going to have to take this screwdriver and I'm going to have to pry this spring off to get it off of the outer seal boot. Okay, so I took the screwdriver and using both hands and being careful, I pried this spring away, and so now we can set this aside. Again, I urge you to go ahead and just buy a new one while you're ordering your new boot. There's no sense in putting an old part back on. That spring might rust and it might eventually break, so what the heck, why not do it? So with that, we can go ahead and remove the outer door seal. I believe I called this inner seal earlier. That was an error on my part. This is the outer side of this door boot seal. And so we remove that and we can fold it inward. Be a little careful here on the He5t. There's this little water kind of deflection device here. It's part of the seal, and so we want to be very cautious as we're removing that from the actual holder, which you can see in there. A little bit hard to see with the sun shining on it, but I'm basically just very gently working this down. Of course, these are all plastic parts. We want to be super careful. Down and away. There we go. And just push the seal inwards so that we have access. There we go. All right, so with that, our next step is going to be taking this door unit off, and we do that by removing the screw here, a screw here, and then there's some lower screws. Here's one here, you can see this one, and then there is one over here. You can see that one. And oh, by the way, this is the problem I'm having. See this band? It's slipped off. That's not supposed to be there. That's why we're leaking water. So next stop is go ahead and take these screws off. When we take off the door, what's going to happen is it's going to slide down, out, and then we're going to lift it aside. It's kind of heavy, so you want to be careful. We're going to start this process by taking off the screws on the top. There's one here and there's one here, so let's do that. Screw. And let's do the next one here. All right, with the top screws on the door off, we're going to now take off the bottom screws and set that aside, and we'll do this one. So we are ready to remove the door panel and the door piece off. It's a little heavy. There's a lip or a ledge here that's actually holding it in place. So when we pull it down and away from this lip, it's going to come out. You'll see that. And there's going to be wires for the door latch that we will have to disassemble. For this particular unit, which is the He5t, there's actually 3 wires that we have to unplug. So I'm actually holding the door unit right now with my knee, and I'm pulling it open, as you can see here. And what I need to do is take off these 3 wires. Blue for bottom, so we'll remove this one. Pink will be the middle, and the black will be the top. So I've separated the 3 wires. Again, you can see the black, the pink one, and the blue one. And so now with those 3 separated from the door latch mechanism, we can pull this unit away. So with the door off, we get a better sense now of what the unit looks like. You can see now we can get access to the boot. And in my case, you'll see that the this clamp has actually separated from where it's supposed to be, which is in this groove here. So this was supposed to be in there, but it pulled on out. So that's something that you shouldn't see. Normally this clamp should actually be attached, unless of course it's broken. And this is a kind of a hose clamp, so that's kind of a nice feature. At least it's easier to screw and unscrew. So I'm going to unscrew this and loosen it up, and then try and put it back on and figure out what happened with this door boot seal, why it came off and why the clamp came off. So next step is to actually remove the seal, and you just work it around. By the way, there is a top and a bottom. This little tab here, it's kind of hard to see, is top. And you'll know that because, remember, we had the water inlet here coming in through this part of the door boot. So there is a right way and a wrong way to put these on. So try to remember that as you pull it off. In my case, since it was already off and leaking water, thusly, I can just pull it away. And now I'm going to have a very careful look at it to see if there's any damage, anything that looks like it might be a leak, and try and see why this one came off. So that's my next step. So here's the entire unit now disassembled, as you can see. And for me, and the problem I was having, this inner clamp actually came off. So the entire boot came off the outside, and all the water that normally stays in here was actually pouring down and out. You can see where it was going down there and then down into the drawer. That's not normal. I think the reason why, this, by the way, is a brand new boot. So why would it have leaked? Well, I'm looking at the boot and it looks absolutely fine. There's no damage. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And I suspect that the instructions I received from one of the online videos saying to put dish soap in this groove is wrong. I suspect that that acted like a lubricant, and it actually allowed this to just slip right off, even with this hose clamp on pretty tight, because I tightened it down pretty darn tight. So I think that's what the problem is. I've washed off any residual soap that was in this channel. I'm going to retry it again. My recommendation is, if you have a He5t and you have this boot like I do, do not put dish soap in this. The other video says to. I'm pretty sure that's what the problem is. So now we're going to start reassembling. Okay, so I've cleaned off hopefully any residual dish soap from around this outer seal, or excuse me, inner seal. And remember that tab? This is the tab for the top right there. And you'll know that because this is where the water inlet goes, which is right there. So again, there is a right way and a wrong way. So we're going to do our steps now, and we're going to put the inner seal on up here. I'm going to need my hands in order to do it, but I'll show you when it's on. I'm basically using the top tab up at the top, and then I'm going to put it all the way around this seal. So what I'm doing is I'm just pushing this door boot seal lip onto the inner lip of the washing machine here, and you can see where this is the inner lip, and we're just going to be very gently pushing that on all the way around, making sure it's nice and tight. And so that's what I'm going to do. Just keep working on this and make sure that it is on that all the way, like this. There we go. All the way around. And I'm going to actually go inside and sort of push it that way too. So it's a two-hand job. I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera to make sure it's on, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished. All right. All right, so what I've been doing is just going around in a circle and pushing fairly with some force this rubber piece on for the inner seal. All right, so that inner seal looks pretty good to me. So again, we've got the inner side on, and now we're going to take the inner hose clamp. And by the way, in the video it showed different. It showed a spring clamp, but this is obviously not a spring clamp. So we're going to use this hose clamp where it was before, putting it back on, bring it around the inlet, and then up, and then get access to the screw head here. And so it needs to go inside this groove. There's a groove. It's kind of hard to see with the camera, but it's going to be fitting inside there. So next is just work that on. Again, I need two hands to make it a little bit easier. Well, maybe not. And just get this on here. Oops, yes, I'm going to use 2 hands. Now that we've worked the inner clamp onto the inner seal, it's time to tighten this down. I tried a screwdriver in the past, but I've actually decided to use a wrench. I think we need a lot of torque on this. It's going to be taking a lot of vibration and whatnot, so I'm going to go ahead and torque this down with the wrench here. Make it nice and tight, because this unit's going to be rocking and rolling when the laundry is going on, and we don't want this slipping off. Now that we have the clamp on super tight, nice and tight, on the inner seal, we can just check, make sure that this is on the right way. You should see where this inlet tube is coming in, that you have your connection here to the door boot seal. So we do, everything's good. So it's time to start putting the door back on. So again, when we put the door back on, we need to make sure we have the black on the top, the pink wire in the middle, and the blue in the bottom. And so what I'm going to do is kind of rest this up against my knee while I start putting on the plugs one by one. So again, the top one will go in the top. It's black. So again, the black will go on top up here, the pink one in the middle, and then the blue one will be going down in here in the bottom. I need 2 hands to do this, so I'll start with the bottom one, the blue one first, and work my way up. So we have, again, the blue connector is down in the bottom there. Next up is pink. Pink is going to be going into the middle. Okay, just like that, and then black goes up into the top, which is here. So that's the 3 wires. Black again up at the top, pink one in the middle, and blue in the bottom. We have the door latch assembly back wired again, so now we can put the door back on, and that requires a little bit of finesse. Again, what we're going to be doing is taking the door and putting this lip underneath here to hold it. So again, 2-hand job. So again, with the door in position, it's caught under that lip there, which is fine. We have 2 screws here, one here and one there, and then we're going to have the 2 screws to put back on, one down here and then the other here. So that's what I'll work on next. With the door back in place and mounted with our screws, it's now time to put the seal back on there. And what we can do is go ahead and, for the seal, what we're going to want to do again is connect the water inlet tube here to this piece right here. And so what I'm doing is just working the rubber door seal back onto the inlet. It's got to go all the way up. You'll see what I mean in a second. Okay, so this is all the way connected now to the inlet, and you can see the rubber goes all the way up to this little tab where there's a stop, and there's one on the bottom side. And so that's all connected and is perfect. So now we can just bring the door boot seal out and just fasten it loosely for right now around the lip. We're going to be coming back with that spring clamp and making sure it's nice and tight a little later. So just going around, working around, and getting the seal back on to the lip. So I've just been working the door boot seal all the way around onto the lip, making sure that it's secure and up against the lip all the way nice and tight. And It's feeling good. So that's good. Now at this time is a good time to put the clamp back on, the spring clamp. What I have is a helper who is going to be holding the spring clamp for me in position while I take a screwdriver and pull this spring very much, because it's a tight spring, all the way around to get that spring clamp back onto that outer door seal. So using two people, we were able to successfully get the spring clamp back on. You can see it in position here, going all the way around. And then this is a very good opportunity for you to check and make sure that this is tight up against the lip. It should be pressed all the way up, and importantly, that clamp needs to be inside, which a little bit difficult to see here, but it's in there, so that's great. So next up, we're going to put the bottom back on, and again, as you recall, this had a lip. You see this lip here, and that lip is going to slide underneath this unit here, so it's just a matter of working it into position. Just as a reminder, I have that optional bottom drawer unit, so what you do is you slip this on, make sure that lip is underneath here, and then just cinch it up into position. And then we are going to do the screws across here, in the middle, and on the left side. So that's what's up next. Do the screws. Alright, starting with the left screw, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the bottom piece back on. So make sure this is good and tight. And the other two. So using our screwdriver, we're just putting in the middle screw, get that situated. And doing the next screw over, which is the right side. Alright, and that's it for the bottom piece. It's now back on. All three screws are in place across the bottom, and we are ready for the next step. So next up is we want to put our control panel back into position here. Again, it is a bit of a Dickens. It does have very short wires here, at least on this particular model, so you want to be careful that you don't pull those too far. And again, what we're going to do is situate this control panel back into its spot, and then we're going to start pushing gently on the bottom and then on the top to put it into place. So moving it into the ready position but not yet pushing it on, just making sure these lips align here, which they do, and that this is all aligned across here, which it is, and then the bottom is all in alignment, looking good. And so now we can start pushing it back in. Okay, looking good. Next up is to start screwing it back in. So we're going to take our screws and put them back in. Remember, we had two screws here. So using the hex, we screw those two screws back in. First the left, and now we do the right side screw. This one is really set deep in there, so don't be surprised. You're definitely going to find it's far reach, but no problem with your screwdriver. So tighten that one down. Alright, so with our front more or less assembled, you know, we still have the chrome piece to put on, but I like to do that last. I like to make sure everything else is in place first. So now it's time to put the top back on. So we're going to take the top, slide it back into position, and do the 3 screws on the back. So we put the top back on. You can see that these grooves here will align with the tabs in here, and they're all the way across like that. And so all we need to do now is push this forward into place and then secure it with the 3 screws. So just pulling it into place, making sure it looks good, and it does. And so now the 3 screws in the back. Alright, so putting the 3 screws into the at the back for the top, and they're just go straight in like that. This is the first one, and we'll do the middle, and we'll do the closest one. Okay, next up is the middle screw. And we'll just fasten that on. And the final one here. And with all the screws back on, it's time to reconnect our power. And so we'll just reach it down here. Okay. And now we can push the unit back into its position, and last but not least, put on the delicate chrome piece. With all of our pieces back in place, now we can go ahead and mount this, and it's a gentle process. Again, this is easily scratched, so we want to be very careful with this chrome ring. And again, we want to take the top, which is these 2 tabs here, and align it so that the top is up here, and they are going to align into these 2 holes there. So that tab and this one are going to go right like that into those holes there. There we go. And then gently push and snap. 2 hands I like to use for this one because we want to go evenly on both sides at the same time. So I'm going to put the camera down while I go ahead and attach this. You'll hear a snapping noise as they go in. So with the chrome piece in place and it's all tight, it's snapped on quite nicely. We are done with our repair. We've been able to put the brand new door seal in, and everything is ready to go. So if you've liked this, please go ahead and like it. I would sure appreciate that. And thanks for watching. Good luck with your repair.